Welcome to Blue Monday from the Blue Room with me, Les, Dave and Roger as usual. I might keep the talking to a minimum today. You'll all be glad to hear because I have completely lost my voice after yesterday's momentous day at Goodison Park. Lads, we'll get straight into it. We'll dispense with the housekeeping because everyone knows the drill. Yesterday, Rog, it was a big day, wasn't it?
I have no idea how big it was, and I was, 200 miles away watching it on the combination of the telly and then the iPad. It's emotional. It's so emotional, isn't it? You know, that ground is all about memories and family and friends and places you've the experiences you've had. And I thought the script was well written. It was a brilliant goal from Ndai, by the way. That first one, can you do more of that, please? Running straight at someone, beat the defender, shoot, goal. Brilliant. Total domination, boring second half, who cared? But yeah, it was a lot of memories there. And it was very, very emotional. On a number of occasions, I welled up on a number of occasions. I thought it was brilliantly done. I thought Gethin Jones did a great job. Some of those musical interludes, apart from the guy's cover version of, I guess that's why they call us the Blues. He even got the words wrong as well, which was quite impressive. But everything else was magnificent. I loved it. I didn't realise, I thought, people who know me, and I think I've said on here, I said my goodbyes with Glenn and Rory when we went to the Spurs game in 2024, the last minute Branthwaite equaliser, the day after my dad's funeral. That was our last visit, and I thought I'd said goodbye, but I'm even welling up talking about it now because I don't think you can ever say goodbye to that place. It's in your history. I first went there in 1973 on Boxing Day to see us beat Man City with my dad, and we won 2-0, of course. And then I took Glenn, my youngest, there to see Man City and beat them in 2008. It's one reason why I can't stand Man City, because I expect us to beat them all the time. And so many memories between then and now. It's just a wonderful place, and we'll miss it. We have to move on, but it's magnificent. Mosey, I don't know what he's been doing. He should give up being a pharmacist and should become a poet, because what he said on the post-match was outstanding. Some people go to church and we go to a cathedral. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Loved it.
It was.
I can't imagine what it was like there. I've had some intense emotional experiences at Goodison, which we'll touch on a little bit, I'm sure, but I can't imagine what it must have been like to have been in the stadium. Tell me about it, Dave.
I wasn't there either, Roger. I was,
really?
I had some really big family stuff to deal with, but you can see from my eyes here, that's from actually just in tears watching that. Every single part of it yesterday, and I've still got so much more of it to watch as well in sort of chronicle order, because I've watched it in various different pieces, and each one's so different. And we criticise the club and hold it to standard every single week, but the one thing Everton good at is exactly what they did yesterday. I thought
they knocked it out of the park. It was magnificent.
It could not have been any better. And can I also say as well, I can't stand certain people at TNT. But it was brilliant the way they produced it as well. It was a brilliant watch. Everything it couldn't have been better than the way it was. Other than a couple of niggly bits that we're going to go on about in terms of what certain players said and whatnot. But I don't want to go too deep with that. But it didn't hit home as hard as it did yesterday, because it seems like it was there forever. It seems like we were waiting forever. It always seemed like earlier this season, it's like, we leave Goodison, and then obviously Bramley Moore came along with the test event. You sort of had that focus, and Goodison didn't hit properly, I think, for many fans until they get there yesterday, until they seen those incredible scenes outside. It was. I didn't
listen. The fans were just incredible, Dave. Though the dignity that the fans showed the ground at the end, as far as I could see, I didn't see many people running on the pitch, and we thought there'd be loads of people with screwdrivers and hammers nicking seats and what have you. The dignity that the fans showed after, and the respect they showed to the club, to the tradition, to the stadium, to the old lady, and I mean the coach greet and all of those thousands and thousands, tens and thousands of people beforehand. My word, what a fan base! If only we could be good at football, eh?
Well, do you know what I did? Do you know what I did find funny that stuck in my? There's going to be an image that's going to be in my mind. Is this absolute WWE wrestler standing up with no top on, a scarf around him with a vape, and I'm like, what where's he ever been? I know everybody. I know most people there have gone out, have had a drink and all that sort of thing, and that makes things overly emotional. But certainly for me, anyway, when I have the odd drink or two. Go on, Sonny.
What struck me yesterday was I've never witnessed this atmosphere before. There was just a buzz around the whole stadium, and it was dead strange. It was lovely because, as you say, there were so many people turned up before the game. He didn't have tickets, weren't going in. As we were walking to the ground, there were people walking back to the train because they'd been up to the ground. But there's nothing quite like Goodison, and we've said this before, nothing quite like Goodison in that sort of spring sunshine.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like. Like pretty much everyone was wearing blue, which made such a difference. Like the Ipswich game.
The scarves made a big difference, because all the former players came on with them on, and Moisey had the scarf around his neck. That was it was a nice touch. It was a clever touch. And wherever you looked in the crowd, everyone had the scarf on.
Yeah, it was really good quality scarf as well. It was they hadn't skimped out on this. It was like the scarves are really good. Yeah, as you say, and it just looked amazing. And there was this buzz around the ground, and it was the perfect send off. I think the fans got it right, the club got it right. Fair play to the Southampton fans as well. They sold out and they did their bit. They just stood there, so there was no sort of usual bad chanting or football in a library or any of that. They played their part, and I think the Southampton team played their part as well.
They should have had it.
It was a routine win.
Well, they had it years ago, didn't they, with the Dell? I know it's sort of completely different, given that was like a previous generation, really, when they went to St Mary's. It's about 20 years ago. Yeah. So it's just respectful, which was good. We could have played a worse side that would have been doing all of that shit that you've just been talking about there.
Newcastle, for example.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a couple who you talk about there doing that. Maybe United, someone like that. But when the way in which they brought all of the generation of players on as well, I thought was brilliant. The only player I heard getting slightly booed was Francis Jeffers, which I think that's perfectly justifiable because I have no time for Francis Jeffers, to be honest with you. But everybody else, Sharpie was delighted to anyway on a bit more of a personal level that everybody seemed to adore him and cheered him when he came on, and everybody else just treated like heroes. Even the ones like, I don't know, Beckford, he come on and everybody cheered him on. Radzinski as well, that was another one. I thought that was quite strange too, because he didn't leave in good terms at all, did he? When he
didn't. No, he went to Fulham.
And said, didn't he say that like we're not big enough or something like that? Or
he wanted European football, I think. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So it was like I was devastated. I probably regret it for most of my life that I wasn't able to be there for various reasons, but to see it, to have it, to know it, to always be there. I mean, it's funny. We've spoken quite a lot lately, Roger, about sentiment. If there was a day for it, for us to both sort of bow down our weapons,
totally. Sentiment overload.
Yeah, it was absolutely that, and it's proven again what Everton are good at, and he did it at the right time, and every single part of it was magnificent, really, and I feel as if that it did Goodison justice. And the funny thing about it is, because the women's game side of it is going to be there, I thought maybe overly concerned about that'd be what would take the gloss off this, because Goodison's still going to be there, whichever way they decide to shape it up and all that. The pitch, everything in and around Goodison, County Road, everywhere where it is still going to be there. And I thought, well, that sort of take things away from people, but it absolutely didn't. And they had a couple of the women's team there as well, didn't he? Talking about
they did at the end. Yeah,
they did, which was really good. It was really it was well put together. So what I'm actually gonna go down there today, not to do anything, just sit outside, just drive around it in my car. Just obviously there'll be a few bits and pieces that they're doing there, while they're taking things down, and after the Lord Mayor show, obviously, but that was absolutely stunning, and I can't stop watching it. Particularly that girl with the violin. I want to find out who she is, because that was sensational. That was the thing that properly set me off big time. I'm talking about like proper tears all over the place. Couldn't believe that it was. There were certain aspects of it. I don't know what you guys felt there, and you obviously, Les, you on the way there and things like that, where it did absolutely finally hit you. The place where it proper nailed you in the bollocks. That was it.
I think for me, it was saying bye to everyone who said bye. That was the hardest part for me. Walking out for the final time was very strange, but like you say, I think because the option will be there to go and watch the women's team, it wasn't quite as bad as it could have been. So if we're walking out for the last time and thinking this is getting knocked down, then that would have been.
I think it's not full on cold turkey, is it? It's not full on cold turkey. You can go and get another fix. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think saying bye to everyone around us, that was really difficult because there's a good chance we won't see these people again. Because they're just people we sit with every week, best mates for 90 minutes, and then we don't see them until the next game. So that was really hard. And I think the trepidation for me now is not knowing who's going to be sat by us at the new ground. I know, Dave, you're going to be sat by me, so that's doing me head in, obviously. But
yeah, I don't think if we ever leave Bramley Moor, mate, I don't think we'll be treating it like that. Probably be punching each other. Probably don't even know each other by that time.
But it's like it was the whole thing about like the whole match day is going to be completely different now. Sort of looking at Goodison and like really taking in like Dave when we went last Monday and we were sat there just taking it in. It's gonna be completely different at the new ground, and I think that's the thing that's like hitting me most. It's gonna be a completely different experience. The whole pre-match routine, match day routine, everything is gonna change, and I think that's what's getting to me most. It's a really weird feeling to put into words, but yeah, like you say, the club did it amazingly. They did the whole thing brilliantly. I don't think it could have gone any better. Even right down, like I said, to getting a 2-0 routine win. It was just, it was a perfect day, to be honest. Just on the players that came out then, I thought Wayne Rooney was a bit of a gamble to bring out because obviously he came back to the club, but the circumstances under which he left, it felt like he couldn't wait to get away, didn't it? And I know the club was in a terrible state at that time. It was a weird one, and I thought the crowd gave him stick in the right way. So there was.
He mentioned it though as well, didn't he? I didn't expect him to mention it at all.
Yeah, there was nothing like personal about him. He never we just gave him stick. I thought in a really good way, but Roger, he dealt with the whole thing pretty well, didn't he?
I'm his biggest fan. I'm sorry, I'm a super fan of not even in Anders Limpar category. But I think Wayne's fucking brilliant. I love him. Everything he's achieved in his career, and I thought he handled the situation really well. I am a Scouser after all, he said. And I know we've had our ups and downs. This is my club. I thought it was wonderful that he was there. One of my greatest Goodison memories is that goal from the halfway line against West Ham. Yeah. I loved it. That hat trick that he scored. He's a hero of mine. Absolutely hero of mine. I think. I just wish he'd be a better manager because I'd love him to manage us. I think he's great.
Hey, Roger, what I would say is he's a decent pundit. I think he's certainly getting better at it. I thought he was really good. The FA Cup on Saturday, he was absolutely brilliant at that. And I think I don't know if he's had elocution lessons, but he's starting to sound better. He's more confident in how he speaks about these things. And when he was talking about various aspects of that game and analysing it properly, I thought he was just as good as everybody else around him.
Yeah, I think he's excellent at all levels. He's an intelligent guy. He's a brilliant footballer. If only we could have kept him, but we didn't get his best years. But he gave us some good memories. That first goal against the Arsenal, let's say that goal against West Ham, and he's a blue for fuck's sake. Everyone, get off his back. He's a blue. He's just like all of us. I thought he was brilliant. My first ever hero was Duncan Mackenzie, and it was lovely to see him there. Silky skills. Only with us for a couple of seasons. Bit of a maverick player, the kind of player I quite like. There's Rooney and those sorts of players. I love them because they're all skilled. And he looked well. He's 75 years old, Duncan Mackenzie. He looked very well.
Roger, wasn't he the guy? Am I right in saying this? And I might be completely wrong here. Didn't he have to jump over the taxi for some sort of advert?
He was part of the piece, wasn't he? Jumped over minis, didn't he?
Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah. somebody will tell us if you're wrong, but it does ring a bell. He started off at Forest, right? So I think he was. I think he played for Clough for a little while. Maybe not. Maybe he was there too early. He came to us in '76, 2 seasons with us. Really skillful player, a bit like Frank Worthington for those of that generation. That kind of lovely left foot. And then he went to Leeds after Forest, came to us and went to Chelsea, and ended up going to America like all those players did. You know, the George Bests of these. You know, they went to try
and then random club names over in the States.
Yeah, the Grizzlies or some nonsense. The other person who stood out for me yesterday, and who over the last couple of years I think has sort of taken on the mantle, was Royle. He spoke magnificently, and he's so. He is a legend. If legends are sometimes given away too cheaply, then Joe, as a player, winning the league title, managing us to an FA Cup, tremendously dignified guy. Love him to bits. I mean, I met him. You guys will know. I'm going to tell you 2 very quick stories. Those that have heard this, listen away now. I met him at the cup final, the infamous cup final party in 1995, when I gate crashed the Royal Lancaster Hotel. And he had the FA Cup on his table next to his dad. And I went in and shook his hand and said, "Thank you very much." And he said, "And what's your name?" I said, "My name's Roger." And he turned to his dad and he said, "Dad, this is Roger." You know, really? I mean, does Mr. Royle Senior give a shit about me? And of course, going into that party, my first sight was the goal-scoring hero, Paul Rideout, with Anders Limpar in a fireman's lift, taking him up to his room, because Anders Limpar didn't drink. And Anders Limpar had too much to drink, and he was going off to bed, because whilst he had won the league with Arsenal, you know, he obviously was a boyhood Evertonian, and he'd won the FA Cup, and he was being carried up to his room by Paul Rideout. And it was lovely to see him there yesterday in that interview with Myers that he did in the Titanic. And I'm so excited. I'm going to meet Wayne Rooney. Yeah, me and Anders Limpar are soulmates. But just Joe Royle. Do we need a lifetime president? Should we have a lifetime president? Why don't they do something like that? Joe Royle's the man. They don't come any better than him.
He's always got the time for people. I mean,
he's a gent, an absolute gent.
Yeah, I mean the piece I put out yesterday. I mean, there's another one we did with a few years ago about the FA Cup and how we got that from him keeping us up after Walker and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's always got
that interview you did with him with Matt is superb, Dave. It's absolutely superb when he talks about his early career and, you know, his debut, and he played away, you know, and the relationship with Catterick. And he's that's a brilliant piece. If you haven't listened to it, listen to that. It's wonderful.
I appreciate that, mate. But with him, like you've just indicated there in meeting him, he's got time for everyone. He's a true gent, and I think that, you know, you see so many, particularly these days, where someone will sign an autograph and walk away as quick as possible because they don't really want to hang about. He would stand and talk to you all day long, and he'd ask you of your opinion. He'd ask you what players, and you could stand there for as long. It's almost like you're like, yeah, Joe, I've got to get going here to catch a train, because he's the one who's more enthusiastic to speak to you than you are the opposite way. Just a lovely man, and he's aged well as well. He still looks in good shape. And he like I say, he's a legend, isn't he? Given what he did, probably underestimated a little bit, given that it was so long ago in the 70s when he was in with us, wasn't he? When he was 16, was it 15?
Late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, he made his debut at 16 or 17. What I didn't realise in that interview you did with him, Dave, was, you know, he was offered the England job twice. Actually. That was the manager's job twice.
That was around Bobby time, wasn't it? And Howard got it as well. He was saying, Graham,
Taylor.
I mean, there was in that piece. If you haven't listened to it, there are a few little gems there that he speaks about. That's probably not too common for people. But coming out, I mean, when you saw Sheedy, when you saw, I mean, again, someone else is a lovely guy to talk to, and then seeing Sharpie as well, and I was worried because, well, when I spoke to him coming up to this, like, recent months. And knowing, like, Alan Aaron is one of his really good friends, is one of my really good friends that commentated at Radio City, was saying he's adamant that he's not going to go back into Goodison given what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that because he's a stubborn Scot, as you'd expect, not just well, I am stereotyping Scots, but he's a stubborn man. He knows he's for certain about what his judgment is. and he was adamant that he couldn't go back, given his emotion of it. I don't know if you remember, he did one particular interview with a Scottish journalist.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Which I thought didn't do him any favors, because I think he's actually said what was in that piece about in his mind that he wasn't going to go back anyway, so he's okay to be a little bit more open about things. But one way or the other, he went back, didn't he? He was at the last home game, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was at Ipswich. Yeah.
He was at Ipswich, and then the cheer he got. I mean, as soon as they said his name, I thought winced a little bit. And well, obviously he's close to you there, Les, isn't he, on your side? I mean, there was a massive cheer for him, and rightly so, given everything he's done for us.
Yeah.
So that side of it was something that was heartwarming as well. And then I just thought it was quite funny when the more modern players, and I thought, do I think these lads should be in the same ilk as those who've just gone in front of them, like a Sheedy or Sharp, and then you go into, with all due respect, Jermaine Beckford, and then you go into who else was in there? Francis Jeffers. I was surprised that I was going through a list this morning, the ones that weren't there. Louis Sahar's put something on his social about that, saying, "I wish I was there." And the other one as well, I thought Pienaar. I don't think he's put anything towards that. I would have expected him to, but I would have expected everybody to be there, to be honest. But given how in recent years him and Baines were the ones that that were probably near the top tier of what we loved about the club in those times, it was strange that obviously they'll have various things to do, like we all do. I mean, you went there, Roger, for various reasons, but yeah, I mean, I think they ticked every box with what you wanted, and Peter Reid is just, what an incredible human being that man is. I don't know if you've seen the TNT thing yet, Les, but when he does the announcement, he does this.
It's brilliant.
The voiceover, and it's just incredible what he does. And again, somebody else who talked to you all day about Everton, and it was interesting because he was on with us on 5 Live a few days ago, and somebody already written the script when he's coming on, and quite clearly not an Evertonian. And the first thing it says was, "Boyhood Evertonian, Peter Reid." Like, mate, you don't understand how false that is to say.
Yeah.
Even Evertonians would be like, "What are you talking about?" and probably critical of the fact that he was not a Blue, because that's part of his DNA, isn't it? That's part of how he ended up to where he was. And
but his mum was a Blue, right? Or his dad was a Blue? Which one was it? His mum's a Blue and his dad's a Red, right? And he was a Red.
That's right. Yeah. And he has some great stories about his mum, and he's from up the road from me in Huyton. In him and talk. And you think about him as a manager as well. I mean, what got me?
Yes.
He was Sunderland, wasn't he? Leeds. He kept Leeds up that season as well, because I remember when Viduka scored a great goal at Arsenal. And I think back to, sorry,
he managed Man City.
Yeah,
I think he got them in the top 6, top 5.
That's right. Yeah, he was a good manager, and Sunderland as well. They were flying over him too. They were like certainly top half the table.
QPR he even managed, I think, or did he play for them?
There was spell. I think he played there. There was spell.
QPR after Everton, I think.
But that's the other thing. I mean, there's various routes you can go off this with thinking back to players and individual stories each of them have got, which I think was really nice about yesterday as well, because you think of these people as Everton legends, you think of them in various capacities when they've been at Everton, but aside from them, the careers that these guys have had elsewhere, where you think how they ended up at the club. Even Baines there, for an example. I remember when I first watched Leighton Baines at Wigan, and you'll have to Google this. He scored one of the best strikes from about 40 yards that I've ever seen, and I think that was against Ipswich away, and he absolutely rips one.
Black kit, wasn't it? It was in a black kit. It was in a white kit, yeah.
And he was Leighton Baines would go as far as saying underestimated, but we talk that term legends, don't we? Which is something I'm normally critical of because it's so easily thrown about these days. Modern day players, he's one that ticks the box. So is, who would you say? Seamus, of course, as well. I
thought Osman spoke very well, by the way.
Yeah,
and he's got very, very high number of appearances. Leon Osman, he's up there in the top 10 of all time, I would guess.
Yeah.
He spoke very well.
Yeah.
Not very good as a pundit, though. I don't think he's overly good on a pundit. He's sort of B string on BBC, isn't he? He's there with that.
he's working on. Well, he works everywhere now, doesn't he? He does BBC, he does Sky, he does all the States ones as well. Jagielka too. He's back in. He's got his hand into. Media now as well, hasn't he? Which
Him and Duncan were very funny on the sort of co-commentary. That you would have missed that, Les, but they were a good double act.
Duncan Ferguson has to be giving me the biggest surprise that I've ever seen in regards to players who've turned to media, because by all accounts, I think in that piece that I did with Joe Royle, he said he's a really quiet lad. He doesn't really like the outward look on him. He doesn't like to be in the spotlight. And obviously, given, general issues he's had as a manager, hearing him speak, and again as a pundit, whether they see him as a pundit earlier this season, he was on TNT again, and he was just magnificent, and it struck me back. I was sat there thinking, this is incredible. There's actual analysis and things like that. And then he came out yesterday, and the things he was saying towards the Gladys Street, and he's doing his old sort of fist in the air and all that sort of thing. And I've quite notoriously, to anyone who listens to us, I never regarded Duncan Ferguson as an Everton legend. I mean, I still don't, much to my own detriment there. I don't think he was. Most people do, given that he was one of the few highlights of when we were in the absolute doldrums in those early 90s when he came in. But seeing the way he
before
acts,
those very recent doldrums, Dave, those doldrums. That's
it. Yeah, one of the ones where the multiple times we've been looking at relegation. But he was fantastic on the mic, and he did everything that every Evertonian regards him for, didn't he? How passionate he was and how he spoke. And like you say, when he got next to Rooney, I thought that was really, really funny.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a good double act. Yeah, it took the heat off Wayne a bit, and because Duncan was like his minder, don't have a go at Wayne.
Yeah. The thing with Ferguson, that, like you say, Dave, that surprised me. I think for the first, when he was a player, he never spoke to the media, did he? Obviously, with what went on in Scotland,
that's right.
He just didn't want to speak to any media. And I remember he did one interview, and I think we heard his voice for the first time about 6 years after he joined the club or something. It was mad. So to see him sort of go into this and sort of lean into this now, he's got a book to promote, obviously, so he's doing everything. But it's like you can't escape him at the minute, can you? He's everywhere, but he does speak really well. One gripe we've got about yesterday, it's Blue Monday, so I've got to have a moan, was the sound system in the ground was terrible.
Yeah. Each player had to be asked, didn't he? What did you say? You can't get what you said there.
Yeah, but I mean, we couldn't hear properly what everyone was saying.
Yeah.
It was just a bit, and I think that was the sort of the one downer on the day a little bit was that bit seemed to go on forever because I couldn't really hear what people were saying. So I don't know if it was the same all around the ground, but in the park end, the sound was bad.
Is that the one criticism we've got of the old lady over the years? They just didn't sort out the mic system.
Yeah. Although the sound system in a new ground is incredible. So that won't be an issue again. But yeah, it was good to see all those players, wasn't it? And that did really sort of hit home, like you said. We try not to be overly sentimental on this, and we've had a pop at like the way we are a little bit overly sentimental. But yesterday, that really hit home about like the generations of players and fans that have been at this club, and just how special it is. Every fan of every club will say the same about their own club. Probably that it's a special club, the ground's a special place. But I think Goodison Park really is. And they had a lot of like people on the screen talking about Goodison, like Gary Neville was one, and like some Alan Shearer, Ian Wright. So players who we didn't particularly like. I mean, Alan Shearer and Ian Wright, Christ, they scored so many goals against us, but they spoke so well about like Goodison Park, and it is a special place, isn't it? And it's going to be hard to replicate that to move on. That's my biggest concern there. How are we going to take that to the new ground, and what does that moving on mean? How are we going to do that? It's because, like I said, you're going to be, your whole routine is going to be different. You're going to be sat by different people. I think it's going to be quite difficult to generate an atmosphere at first because it's going to feel so alien. A lot of fans have obviously been through that, Southampton being one set of fans, but I just wonder how we do move on to the next level with this, and what will it mean for the club? Will the club be a completely different entity now? You know, we've just had the new naming rights, which I don't know. We'll pull at that thread a little bit maybe, but it feels like the club is going to be completely different. Rog, what are your thoughts on where it goes now? Are we leaving that behind and we're going to become something completely different now, or can we keep what we've got? I don't know. It's a tough one for me.
I hope we can keep some of it. I really do, because it's history and it's part of what we are and it's part of who we are, and good players. You know, Everton to me is about friendship, family, and good players. It's not about relegation fights. It's not about that sort of nonsense. So I'd like to think that we can get back to some sort of stylish way of playing football. I just don't think you'll be able to replicate the atmosphere in a new place. It's different, isn't it? You know, however close to the pitch it says it is, it's not as close as you were at Goodison. And you know, what comes first? That's our 5th home win of the season. That's all. And people talk about Goodison and a bear pit and the atmosphere. Our home record of late's been shite.
Yeah.
Come on, you know, the fans can only do so much, and boy, the fans have done more than their fair share to keep us up in the last 3, 4, 5 years. But the fans, you know, surely the football's got to come first, and the atmosphere. Of course, there'll be, you know, noise, and there'll be people, and there'll be what is it, 20-25% more people in the new stadium. So, and the acoustics are great, and the big stand behind the goal, all of that. But there's got to be good football, because it's not sustainable otherwise. It's not sustainable. Fans will, you know, their interest will wane. A boring game at home to a Brentford or whatever, maybe it won't sell out. So, you know, it's really incumbent upon the owners to now start giving back to the fans and get some good players in, improve the squad, invest in the squad, retain the talent that we have. Hill Dickinson, I'm not sure it's the real deal, pardon the pun, doesn't roll off the tongue. Sure, they're a lovely law firm, but this, it's more than football. That kind of just stuck with me a little bit, because it's not really. I just want the best commercial deal and a name that's recognised around the world. And it's one of those, the club signed a record deal. Yeah, okay. I mean, good. We got naming rights, but I don't know. Is it good? Is it the best? Is it the best we could have done? And should we, rather like Spurs, have hung out for a better deal from a bigger global brand? I don't know. I don't want to be churlish about it.
One thing I think on the name is we often sort of lament the fact that we're not named after the city. So basically, Liverpool get all the recognition because
they're
named after the city, and all those connotations that go with the city of Liverpool. But for me, Everton is a word that's synonymous with one thing, and it's a football club. And I don't think we play on that enough. It's like Everton just means football. I know it's a district, but it's not really to anyone else. The whole context of Everton is it's a football club. And I think any stadium name should have Everton in it. So it should be the Hill Dickinson Everton Stadium. Yeah. It doesn't go off the tongue, but I think we need to just reinforce the name more.
I think you're absolutely right. I saw, you know, you've seen a list of different tables of the best deals around, and somebody even put Spotify in there with the Nou Camp. I mean, it's not going to be the Spotify Nou Camp, is it? Is it?
No, they've just got it on the shirts for now, haven't they?
Yeah, but it was like a stadium naming type deal.
Roger, were you surprised? Because I've seen the list. I don't know if it's complete. It's the official list, but how little amount of a short amount of money many stadiums get per year in regards to the sponsors of the stadium. So I was thinking it was buying ahead of that with 30 million, then it went down to Atletico Madrid with Saudi Arabia, but then everyone below them is like the 10, 11, 12 million, and Everton will be in like the joint sort of top 10 or 11. I was like, that's quite staggering when you think what you'd imagine the sponsor of a stadium would be paying for it. I was like, that doesn't sort of make sense to me. I'm not too sure why it's like that.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think you want to be changing the name that frequently. The Emirates deal's 10 million a year, isn't it? But it was like 25 year, 250 million or something. So it was a big, a big chunk of cash.
Imagine Etihad's the same, isn't it? It'll be something like that too.
I would have thought so. And I think it's a difficult one, because I mean, there's two words as well there: the Hill Dickinson Stadium or arena or park. the Hill Dickinson Stadium sounds like, I don't know, it's like a rugby ground or something.
Yeah,
there's something about it that
What's the other one? The Wicked thing.
Oh,
what was that
Totally
for?
Wicked. That's St.
The
Helens.
Totally Wicked, yeah.
Totally Wicked. It's not the best one in rugby league. I think it's Castleford play at the Menderhose Arena or something. I mean, there's some cracking ones there, but Totally Wicked. I mean, that deal's probably 2 and 6. Apologies to St. Helens fans, of which I'm not one.
Yeah, it's really
USM give us 30 million just to have first dibs on the naming rights.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that did surprise me, and maybe it's, I mean, is it a 10-year deal we've got? Is it?
I don't think they've said officially anything, and this is the problem because we've done another record deal because it's bigger than the last record deal we did. I don't know what it is.
The thing which has interested me, like many of it, like we've touched upon here, is you've got some big boys from America there, and if you look at that angle of things, what they do in the States in regards to sponsorship and entertainment. Sponsorship's the top of everything else when you think of like MetLife and all of that sort of thing. Surprised you haven't seen like the Apple Arena yet or something like that. But I'd have thought that is where, and we have got some clues headed towards us about how they're going to approach the club. And some of it feels like there's a bit of the sitting back and sort of waiting before we see what cards they're going to deal. This feels like one of those with it being emphasised as a local brand. The name of it, I mean, none of us are going to speak of that, are they? I mean, that's what I think is quite funny when a firm or who we've got now is sponsoring the stadium name. Nobody's ever going to call it that name. Other clubs will take the piss. We've had the Shite take the piss out of it with the name, whatever they put, like who's it, Dickinson, the fella who sells
Dickinson's Real Deal. Yeah,
the Real Deal. Dickinson. All of that. Yeah, they've done all of that, which I think is quite funny. It's quite humorous, to be honest with you. But hopefully that's just a catalyst to what we're able to do. Maybe it's just in relation to how the club is right now, in that position of we're let's hope, relatively comfortable Premier League side that's going there. If you grow as a team, then you're going to grow financially. You know that more than me, Roger, more than most other people, to be honest with you. I did find interesting, just to sort of link this to the owners, what the manager said yesterday. I thought he was brilliant when he was on the mic as well.
Yes, he was.
He was outstanding what he said about the fans, the club, his history that's firmly in place with our association, certainly in the 2000 years and ever since, really, and him coming back. And then he said, he turned and said, didn't he? This isn't verbatim, but he said, I hope these owners are watching this.
Yes, absolutely.
And I was thinking, wow, that's a big thing to say. So I'd like to think again, like we're piecing the jigsaw together with these guys. They seem to be, you would imagine, a pretty open book if he's able to go and say that. And he said the other day that we'll see shortly about maybe a couple of deals that we've got and made. And I'm thinking, whoa, this is an Everton feeling normally, because we're waiting for deadline day to sign a couple of players and get a couple of loans in. I'm thinking this is where right now I'm fitting it into our general conversation the last 10 minutes or so, where we need to see how different this club is now, where we're going to have to pull ourselves away from what we saw at Goodison. That has to be different. I know people want to take what Gladys Street is like, and it's going to be like that in the South Stand. All of those elements you can reflect upon. But this is a different place, and Everton are a different club going to here. And whilst for most of the summer, probably even longer, I'll be crying and watching that the girl with the violin millions of times, thinking back to it, and it's always there. Everton have to take the best parts, not everything, the best parts of what we can take as a club to, I'm still going to call it Bramley Moor.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? That's going to be the difficult thing, because I do think the club is going to change now. And I know
it has to more than we should do. It should be a necessity.
Yeah, well, Rog, when we did that, those two shows with Gav, we sort of said we don't really want our old Everton back because it's a bit shit. To be honest, it feels a bit of a wrench to me that the club might be a completely different entity now, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think for me, the worry is that, as season ticket holders, we could get marginalised as this goes on. We could get priced out as this goes on, because that's sort of the way football goes. They've kept the season tickets relatively the same price, more or less, for the next season. But then will that creep up? Will we get priced out? I don't know. And I think yesterday that kind of brought that home as well. That we're gonna be dead different, and I'm not sure how that's gonna pan out.
I think we've got to be smarter, Les, right? That's the difference, right? What we've been for the last 10 years has been absolutely stupid at virtually any level. In terms of recruitment, in terms of coaching, we've had some really poor managers. We've made some really poor decisions. We haven't exploited our commercial opportunities, and maybe the Hill Dickinson deal is the start of that. My concern over that, just to finish off on that just very quickly, is that I think we might have given away too much because we've been dazzled by £10 million a year, and we've allowed them to call it the Hill Dickinson Stadium, right? And that seems like, quite a cheap price for something which could become, we want it to become, and I think TFG want it to become a major entertainment venue, not just Everton Football Club's home ground. So have we given it away too cheaply is my concern. And let's wait and see. We've got to be smarter, and it's not just about money. If any club has proven it's not just about money, Everton Football Club have done that since Mashiri took over in 2016. So we've got to be smarter. We've got to have better recruitment. We've got to use data more. We've got to develop more through the academy, and we've got to be smarter. And that means finding players like Hyson at Bournemouth, who's going to go for a £40 million profit in 12 months. So hopefully there's a scouting network in place. Hopefully these people who are doing talent identification, and we're still not quite sure what that is compared to scouting and recruitment and negotiation and banging the table and saying less or more. We've got to be smarter, and Moyes needs help, and we need proper experts. Now, I'm hoping, Kinnear has said so, that there'll be subject matter experts coming in, and let's hope they are, and they aren't just friends or people or friends of friends who've come in because they know the boss. We've spoken off air about this, Les, about you go into a company and you need to hire the best people, not just bring in mates from a previous life. I'm not suggesting that's happening, but let's make sure that we do get the very best people, finding the very best players, and we coach them and develop them in the very best way, because it's a long journey back to those heady days of league titles in the 70s and the 80s. And that's what we need to take from Goodison, not the last 20 years, which have been pants. Let's remember the Joe Royals. Let's remember the 80s team. Let's even remember the cup final team of 95. Those people were winners, and we haven't had enough winners either managing us or playing for us, and we need more of them. And that's what my fear is, that TFG will do too much commercially and they'll price out the match-going fans. That's totally pointless and self-defeating, because we need those fans day in, day out, game in, game out. But I also feel that they might still tug on the heartstrings of the old community and look at us with our local firm sponsoring us. It's a difficult balance they've got to strike, and I wish them very, very good luck in doing so.
Yeah, I think there's some easy winners for them that I hope they don't take. Like you mentioned there, in terms of getting people in on data-related stuff or in recruitment or anything like that, I think it's really easy and the easy choice for many clubs, and it's been to their detriment across various levels, where they've gone and got somebody as a club legend in, who's somebody who's going to be director of football. Everton have got the history of where this does not work, and you look at yesterday. If our new owners are sitting there in America, wherever they were yesterday, and looking at that, thinking, "Wow, look at this club we've got. Look at everything this club's about." I think it's very easy, unless you sort of associate this with something that we need to be that's a hell of a lot different to it, to think, we're on to a winner here because we're going to get thousands more of Everton fans who were standing outside and couldn't get a ticket if we keep everything as the same. And where they need that doesn't entwine with Everton succeeding as a club now. That's why I'm saying that there's certain aspects, most aspects need to be ripped away. Goodison is there, Goodison's gone. Not in a physical sense, obviously, since we've got what's happened with the women, which is great. And then you have to look at, isn't it great if you were able to marry up a outstanding international, somebody in recruitment, or a strategic sort of position like like Kinnear sort of hinted at, I'd much prefer that we look so much further afield at these places, at these people. Just because on their CV it has Everton as one of the words doesn't push them up the ladder as to be one of the ones recruited. You think of any job, you go for a job now that 99.9% you're not going to know the people who you're going for your CV, your interview with, but yet you'll be showing your CV. I'd hate to think that if somebody did that, they'd have an Everton-related subject that they've had in their career, and that has given them an overly positive effect on whoever's doing the interviewing. Everton, in a way, and they'll probably get heavily criticised, is second on that list to me. That needs to go second to what this club needs to do, to the people we need to get, to how you lay things down and say this is the method we're going with right now. It's going to work this way, and hopefully we're not sitting there thinking you've got to go and get. For instance, you related to Duncan Ferguson as a caretaker manager, or Unsworth as a caretaker manager. It just didn't work. It did not work. But they were given those jobs because they're Evertonians. That can't work. That's not the catalyst for how clubs work. And I say most of the time here, there is an asterisk next to that, because you do sometimes get club managers who are legends in both ways and are brilliant coaches. That's the maddest touch, isn't it? If you can get that, where you've got a manager of a football club who was a legend as a player, Peter Reid style, given what we were talking about, what he did as a manager, relatively successful at various clubs. If you were saying, oh, he can come to Everton and give them a go, obviously he's too old to do so now, you think, oh yeah, that could really work. It's seldom that it does.
Last two managers to win trophies are former players, Howard Kendall and Joe Royle.
No, yeah, that's a really interesting point. That just completely slapped me in the face.
No, I don't want to see it either, and I'm the guy who said, "Oh, give Wayne Rooney the job," which I'm not saying because he hasn't done a good job. The last legend to be, playing legend to then become a playing managerial legend is obviously Kenny Dalglish. But then you look at Souness and he failed.
But Roger, they even did that on a second occasion, and even though they went and won the League Cup, he was absolutely dreadful in 2012, other than when they beat us. He was dreadful because he just did not get what modern day football was.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's where I think you look at you can see the danger to step towards all that stuff. I just, the bottom line, I just want to see a new Everton. I think we've sadly said goodbye to the one that we've all known in all of our lives. Whatever, it's open ocean for us now, isn't it? Go and do it properly.
Yeah, I think just to round it up as well. I know this does sound quite sentimental, but it did feel fitting to have David Moyes being 100%. The last manager at Goodison Park. I didn't think I'd feel like that about him, because I was quite bitter when he left in the circumstances he did, because he he had us off a bit. I've been quite ambivalent to him coming back, but he's properly won me over these last few months, and it just felt right that he was the man to sort of lead the club out of Goodison Park. I don't know what anyone else thinks on that.
Well, it's a similarity with him and Rooney. Him and Rooney did the same thing. They binned us off for United, but they're back home now, aren't they? And yeah, Moyes, but I do think there's an aging process going on. His red hair's gone, and he's now got grey hair, and he's an effective Premier League manager. But can he take us into the top 8, the top 6? Can he get us really at the top? Against those young managers, the Iraolas and the Glasners. Can he compete? Even the Slots, can he compete against them? Because this new breed of managers is here, right? Pep football is dead. Thank Christ for that. All of that death by Rondo in the paper that I read about today. It's over. We don't have to watch 52,000 passes and 2 corners. It's a different game. And Moyes is a good manager. I think he needs support from younger, vibrant coaches and scouting network underneath him. But we're in safe hands. He just can't have total carte blanche. And it does feel comforting that he's there. And I agree with you. He spoke brilliantly at the end, talking to the owners and get your hand in your pocket.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised when he came in. That dinosaur association's thrown out, isn't it? I don't know if anybody's seen the dreadful Sean Dyche chat on that Sky overlap
What
thing.
an arse! What an
What
absolute
an
arse!
absolute
He talked complete rubbish for so much
from
of that. Yeah, but a few of the pundits called him out, Dave. You know, Paul
They
Scholes
did.
called him out
Yeah.
about what what are you doing about
Scholes.
shin pads in training, you idiot? It
Yeah.
doesn't make any difference, you know.
Well, you look at Scholes, if you look at the body language and the faces on them when he's
Yeah.
chatting shit,
Yeah.
Scholes and Roy Keane. I mean, I bet you Roy Keane's sitting there thinking, what on earth? Why on earth have we got this man on this show here? And look, I feel it's inevitable that Scott Parker gets sacked by Christmas and you'll probably get him back. He'll manage Burnley again at some point. But going back to Moyes towards the end of the show, he surprised me a lot when he came in. Understandably, I didn't look too deeply at him when he was at West Ham. Interesting concept that he's had from their fans there, because most of them ended up not liking him. Yet he went and got them their first trophy, and since it was whatever it is, Penny Farthing, and everyone was cycling around to it. Yeah, and he went and did that, and it was quite quickly that he was sort of, hang on, no, we want more than this, and they've obviously tried to jump the gun a lot more, thinking you've won a trophy, you should go and win another one. It's not possible, is it? That's just like a bit of a freak season when you're able to go and do that in the Europa Conference League. But when he's come back to us, I've been very impressed with how he set us up, with how we play, with what he tries to do with the players that we've got, which is limited. Let's be honest. There's a limited group of players there, but he's been able to find with many of them the best of how they play, the best of their ability. Beto's one. I'm looking at Alcaraz there as well, which let's hope he's gone back to being a little bit more fussy on him rather than maybe lukewarm, which I sort of got the impression of. But like we've said many times, easy money to go and get a decent quality player. Obviously, yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, that is the big question for me over the summer is that back line there. What we go and do fullback wise, what we go and do across that back four, really. You could feasibly looking at that new season, with the exception of O'Brien, 3 other completely different players, with Tarkowski notwithstanding there, and then you've got so many going out because the contracts are finished as well. I'd like to think that we're putting that in the hands of the right man, like you say, though, Roger, with a good group of people in and around him who are able to associate with him and the decisions that are made. I have faith in him, which I never thought I'd say. Like you, Les, where I was like, I don't like this. I'm a bit, again, I don't know. Cautious of what his approach is. I'm more than happy to have it in his hands as we approach the new stadium. And he's evolved, and the club needs to go along with it.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be. We'll wrap up there. It's going to be big changes coming at Everton. It's going to be a completely different thing for us. It feels like the season's finished already, but we have got
Newcastle away.
No, we've got a chance to stop the Geordies getting the Champions League.
Hopefully,
you know what? I was warning since the start of the season and those fixtures came out. I was devastated that our last game of the season was one before the final game. And I know the club intended it to be like this for whatever reason.
You mean the last home game? Yeah, you mean the last home game.
I wanted that to be the last game of the season, because you talk about after the Lord Mayor show going away to Newcastle. Fair play, because obviously it's going to be a sellout, because we're amazing with our lads and girls going to the away games. But I tell you what, I mean, if there's any game that I think could be like 5, 6, 7-0, it'll remind me of that time we finished 4th and then went to Arsenal.
I was there 7-0 on that day, and we were singing, "We're going to win 3-2, we're going to win 4-3, we're going to win 5-4." But we stopped once it got to 6-0. We stopped singing. That was absolutely surreal, that game.
Just remember, I think I'm right in saying it, Vieira just looked like he was playing against a load of 16-year-olds on his own, just absolutely running rings around everyone. And yet we're all watching it thinking, I'm not arsed, we're in the top 4. And then Villarreal came.
Well, hopefully the Toffees can derail Newcastle's Champions League charge. And Jordan Pickford, he hates Newcastle, he hates the shite. Jordan Pickford is dynamite.
He was funny though, Les. Sorry to completely destroy you finished there, but I thought he was funny on the mic as well.
He was brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah, so funny. He just looks like, bless him. Sometimes I look at him, he looks like he's got his head in the clouds at times. Not in a negative way, but sometimes he just looks like he enjoys his life. He enjoys being a footballer. He had his little baby walking around, the little baby. I thought it was brilliant when you started hearing from him.
One thing from yesterday that you might not have seen on the telly, every time the crowd started singing that song, he'd like sort of conduct them and wave them on. He absolutely loves it. So yeah, hopefully he has a good week next week, and we do.
There's an Everton legend.
100%.
I love him. Absolutely love the fella. We'll leave it there, gents. So we've got all the build up to Newcastle anyway. If anyone's bothered, who knows? But yeah, big changes coming. It was a memorable day yesterday. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. We'll have all the usual stuff this week. Up to toffees.